How do you see, and you also handling kids, right? You know, dealing with kids on daily. How do you see this whole thing affecting them, and how do you see music playing a role in preserving some sort of sanity for society?
I think that a lot of us have found some sanity in just joining some of these lives that you guys have been doing. It's helped a lot. Like I had a schedule before. Like I knew what time you came on, what time JoJo came on, you know, what time certain people came on. And then it helped to get through working from home. Because I would, even at work, when I would go in, I'd play a little music in the background anyway to, you know, get my mind going so I could get through whatever work I had to do on the computer. And this made it even better. And the greatest thing about your show is that we've made friends and we've created community.
Yeah, definitely.
Which has been something great to look forward to, especially since, you know, we haven't really seen our friends and family as much. Now, my parents haven't been afraid to see us, you know, because we're their, you know, we're their kids, we're their everything. So my mother and my father haven't shut us out from visiting them. So we've been visiting them since the summer. At first we were afraid, but we've always been in touch with, you know, my parents, my nieces and nephews, and like we've always, you know, maintained that bond. But in terms of my friends, we've had a couple of like online birthday parties for a few people, and maybe a couple of people went to the house. And I kind of feel like nobody's going to invite me anywhere because they know I work in my building, where the majority of them are still working at home. And I don't blame them if they're, you know, frightened. But working in my building and also being put in charge of what they call the isolation room for kids who show symptoms or have a fever or don't feel well has alleviated a great deal of any fear that I may have had. So like I'm fearless now. I don't have any. So now when I look at other people and they're like, oh, I'm afraid and wear your mask and all this, I'm like, yeah. So, you know, I've been in situations where I was in contact with an individual who may have had, you know, who tested positive. And according to the new guidelines, if I wasn't around that person for more than 3 hours, then I don't have to quarantine. That's what they made up in New York City. Okay. So I don't know, you know, I guess that's them lowering the amount of
pressure.
I don't know, pressure or quarantine status or whatever, or trying to limit the amount of disruption, but it's still disruptive because
I mean, and they have to, I think, eventually, because society-wise, I mean, you can see everywhere people are starting to lose their shit. They were already losing their shit last year, but I think this year is even harder because, like, there is a sense of lassitude. There's a sense of like, okay, now this is just too much. This is just too much. Psychologically, people are losing their shit. You know, I even found myself at a certain point where like I was like, it was a month and a half ago, I think, or months ago, where I started to wear my tie and I started to dress up because I needed to psychologically just motivate myself in a different way because it just got to my head. As positive and as I am, and as you know, as muscled my mind and my brain is, it hit me. You know, yeah.
Now imagine a kindergartner.
Yeah.
So, you know, the first time you come to kindergarten, you're crying, you're sad, you don't want to leave your mom, right? That first week of school, maybe first month. So it's like Groundhog Day. Every time we go back in the building after a COVID shutdown, because they'll shut the building down for a week after they do testing and we have like 2 positive cases. So when we come back, here we've got the kindergartners and it's the first day of school all over again. They're crying, they're screaming, they're holding on to their parents. And then we have to try to get them to relax and come in. So, you know, my principal made it so that the kindergartners can come in every day that we're open. No longer that staggered schedule where A day, B day, because they need to get used to coming every day so they can feel comfortable, you know. And it's been a lot more like crisis situations with the kids because of that, the inconsistency. Then we're looking for people, you know, if your kid doesn't log in at all and the parent doesn't answer the phone and we don't know where the parent is, then that's another situation. We're supposed to take attendance. So, you know, we have some kids who are logging in from Puerto Rico right now. You got kids logging in from other states because they just left out. And since they're fully remote, what are we supposed to tell them? It's not like they, allegedly don't live where they live, making them zone to our school. They're just, I guess, traveling, which they can do right now if they still log in. So that's been interesting. And then they want us to go find people, find the kids, find the parents, and the parent pick up the phone, and it's difficult because our families sometimes have to change phone numbers if they, aren't able to keep up with the bills or whatever. And
yeah. I mean, it's pretty hectic. So I guess this taps right into the topic of the day, right? Hard times will make or break you.
Yeah, they will.
And you see, especially these youth, man, these kids. This is if it's those who don't have like good parenting or solid parents to psychologically help them. Like we're about to have a generation that's going to be pretty fucking messed up.
Yeah, and right now, even if you are a good parent,
that's true.
So that you can't even be a good parent. Like there were times that my daughter's school will call and say, she didn't log in for such and such class. Do you know why? And at the time, I was at work in the Bronx and she was at home in New Jersey by herself because her parents work. So, I told one of her teachers one time, I said, you didn't make this up and neither did I. But I go into work and my child stays home by herself and has to be responsible enough to just do what she has to do without anyone prompting her, which is not the norm for her to just have that kind of autonomy.
Yeah. And it's also too much autonomy upon kids because they don't have the maturity nor even the the mental strength to actually uphold themselves to the type of expectations the adults have. It's like, I mean, and sometimes I'm like, why don't adults realize, or some adults don't realize that they themselves were not, strict like that. They were not. Like you became,
right.
trained to be upholding to meet the standards or the requirements of your superiors, whatnot. Kids don't necessarily have that. I mean, some do naturally, but like not everybody does. Like
most of them don't. And then this is depressing because if you think about it, my daughter in particular goes to an arts high school. So these kids were there doing performances, singing, playing instruments, doing artwork, television production, all of that. So now they're just home. No more performances. They're playing instruments through Zoom or whatever with the other people from the band or, what have you. They're doing dance through Zoom. It's not the same. And for her to be in 11th and 12th graders, there needs to be some kind of change in public policy for them for what they went through in this past year. To have to have spent your senior year remote, to have to have spent your 11th, because here, I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the 11th grade is the year that colleges look at to see, where you can go, whether you qualify for scholarships. This is the time where you get to be seen. If you play a sport, you can be seen by recruiters. If my daughter dances, this is the time that she probably would have auditioned at different schools. None of that happened this year. And she has some of the hardest subjects this year for 11th grade that she's had her whole school career. She has chemistry and like math, like trigonometry, there's stuff I can't even help her with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the older you grow, the more complication you encounter.
Forget it. I couldn't do it back then either. Chemistry.
I mean, look, forget about it. Me neither. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Let's get someone else's support. Yeah, I wanna then kind of like segue into the metaphysical approach of it or spiritual approach of it, which I think is really essential to maintain some sort of spiritual sanity through these really tough times. I mean, I've seen people that find themselves, through these rough times. Some people lose themselves through these rough times. Some people have spiritual awakenings through these rough times. I mean, myself last year, catching the COVID and all these things led me to really have, these massive epiphanies about my life and how I needed to carry things further after I came out of this whole, drastic experience, to say the least. What would you say was one of the things that kind of helped you maintain that equilibrium, spiritual equilibrium? And what would you say is the kind of spiritual changes and by spiritual, I'm not talking about church or anything like that. I'm really talking about just energies, and spirited kind of topic at this point. What kind of shifts do you see operating at this point from your perspective?
I think for us, not just me, but like for our family, I had to teach my daughter about meditation, about getting centered, and about, finding some calm. And she's actually started to take on some of those characteristics. She's asking me about crystals now. She's asking me about how to center herself. Like right before she won that dance battle, she and her group did a performance, and then she had to go battle. I went over and I stopped her and I said, center yourself and go meditate in the corner somewhere to get yourself back on center before you battle. And she actually did that. So she's been meditating more. And to be honest, this pandemic actually reignited her love for dance, because in school, it was like, oh, we're just doing ballet. I'm bored. Like, I wish we would do more modern. Like, there were other things that she wished she could do in school. And she had actually decided that she wasn't going to go to college for dance. She was like, I want to major in English. I might want to be a doctor. I don't know if I want to dance. But now she realizes how much she loves dance. So that was something that helped. And then for myself, I know I've had a hard time sleeping because I'm off. So I've been doing more guided meditation.
A lot of people have that issue. A lot of people have issues with sleeping. I mean, myself included. I've been only, for the past 3 months, I've only been able to sleep 4.5 hours per day.
Right. And then I get up, my eyes are burning from looking at the screen when we're home for work. But I found on YouTube, like, Akashic record meditations, guided meditations. I now sleep with like this little light that like makes it like there's stars on the ceiling. And then I put on the TV, like one of those guided meditations for YouTube or something, so that I can sleep. And it's actually helped my sleep be better. And it's actually gotten me to a place where, I don't know, I'm a little bit more functional. But I think one of the other good things about, good and bad, about this pandemic is that it gave me a chance to actually do some research and go a little deeper into the knowledge that I already had about what's going on globally on a spiritual and metaphysical level, like what's happening. Like we're actually in the middle of a battle that people don't realize. People are looking at the surface. They're looking at what's happening in politics, who won the election, what's happening here. They don't realize that we're in the middle of a shift globally, just with the whole timeline of our existence and where the planet is headed for everyone as a people. Energies are rising. People are becoming more aware. This is like the Great Awakening. So you're seeing more people become more aware of themselves, become more aware of their surroundings. And it's opened a lot of people up to have time to do that research where they wouldn't if they were traveling to and from work all the time. And then it's like been great for some. And then some people have completely snapped. Like I've seen the spectrum, like where it's like, okay, you need to go to the hospital, or you're in a better place and you see what's going on and you're awake in a sense, and you're more connected with yourself. And then a lot of people have been afraid over the years to just be alone with themselves.
That's the thing.
And I think this forced a lot of people to be alone with themselves. And if you don't like yourself, that might send you down that path, that wrong path to, mental illness. And if you finally have like slowed down and taken that time to be alone with yourself and you realize, I'm okay.